Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar on security point of view for work from home and consultation. So this webinar is association with IBM. Let me introduce myself. I'm Arvind Kumar, head of sales for India and Pacific region at Aegis. Along with me, I have my co-host Ankit Jain. He's a CPT from IBM Security Division. So this entire webinar will be on three sessions. First, I'll talk about the challenges because of work from home and COVID-19 issues. Uh, Followed by Ankit Jain will talk about the solution or the how we can overcome these challenges. And the last 15 minutes will open chat session for all of you to raise a question, so that we'll be happy to help and answer those questions. With this, let me start this webinar. Uh, Ankit, can you move on the next slide, please? Uh, Before we get into today's topic, let me give you a brief about Aegis on 2 minutes. Aegis is a cybersecurity company focused in India and global market. So we have offices across India, which is Bangalore, Mumbai, and Delhi, and then we have offices across USA and Middle East. Aegis helps organizations cybersecurity journey across six domain. First domain is managed detection and response services, where we help organizations to build captive SOC, as well as we offer managed security services from Aegis SOC based out of Bangalore and Mumbai. We help organization in the area of identity and access management. So this uh, can be for your normal users like employee, and it can be for your privileged users as well. Followed by we help some of the large product companies to build secure products on using our security engineering services. And then we might have worked with some of you and a large customer base across the globe on security verification services, where we help organizations to secure applications as well as infrastructure. uh, then the new moving trends is on a cloud security. So we help customers to devise strategy to how to move cloud and help organization to secure and implement security controls around cloud setup. And the last not the least, we help organization on a risk advisories. We help organization to manage the compliance. We help organization to secure the data, which is your unstructured data, structured data. And the last, we help and manage the compliances as well. So this is all about Aegis. And probably before we move on, Ankit, can you move on the next slide, please? Now, thank you. So COVID-19 pandemic is placing greater reliance on digital systems and testing the effectiveness and resilience of corporate cybersecurity programs. All of you agree on this. Having most employee going remote is obviously straining already tight IT resources, both people and available remote access, which is your VPN. Social engineers and fishers are also in feeding, fenging, and taking advantage of the COVID-19 situation, as evident by a huge uptick in COVID-19 themed phishing attacks. COVID-19 theme phishing strategies are likely to be more successful because of the built-in stressor events, and people lack familiarity with these phishing themes. Now, it will be imperative for organization to conduct deeper risk sensing on issues related to remote work capabilities like VPN capacity and employee increasingly using insecure Wi-Fi since they're working from home. And while the hacking community is salvating at the opportunity to exploit these vulnerabilities. Uh, so, work from home, if you look at the challenges, so obviously due to COVID-19, so your users, you have two kind of users in the organization: your privileged users who manage all your crown jewels, and your authorized users. They need access to the data and application at any point of time from any device. So irrespective of application being on and data being on premise or public cloud or private cloud or even in a hybrid ecosystems. And the most of the organizations face a challenge where they have not done the risk assessment, and neither the policy or procedures are tuned to cater to this sudden requirement which has come because of this pandemic. So organizations normally have built their entire system to cater roughly 10 to 20% of the organization size to work from home scenario. And especially the privileged users, uh, is very rare case they access these privileged systems outside the organization. So the challenge for the organization is to provide access to authorized user and application data, uh, and the privileged users securely from working from home. Uh, Ankit, can you move to the next slide, please? Now we'll take a scenario for the authorized user. He is going to access his applications data from a remote. So user is he since he's a authorized users, he need access for his application and data from any device and from any time. So the system which has been put in place makes sure that his authorized users, his identities are well protected. So the for the organization as a IT owner of the organization or the security owner of the organization, your first question is, how can I expose my application outside of my network? Because during the entire journey, a lot of application might not have been built or designed to access the application outside the organization. Move on, please, Ankit. Other challenge which the organization face is they have not done the risk assessment or the security assessment for the application, so they can expose these application outside the network. Ankit, please move on. And the next point is obviously the container data, which is core of any organization, which is within the boundary of the organization. The policy process obviously is not kind of defined to expose these data outside of the organization. So that is also another risk, a challenge which every organization is facing. Move on, please. And the last and not the least on challenges front. So when you set up your monitoring system, is obviously you have set up a monitoring system to monitor a small subset of user base from a VPN point of view. Suddenly you got a spike where you have to monitor all the VPN user accesses from remote, which is obviously not has been factored, another system has been designed. Yeah, please move on. And one of the important topic is, yes, your administrator or the previous user is always have been accessing or managing your system from on-premise. Now suddenly they have been asked to manage from remote location. So yes, you have privacy and compliance issues, especially because it's a lot of targeted attacks which is happening because of this phishing scenario. Uh, the malwares are coming, your ransomware is increasing. Move on, please. Next. And yes, all these complications are getting increased when you have multiple environment. You have on-premise, you have public cloud, and you have private cloud. If you summarize this, so basically what we're talking about here is ID, which is your desktop, laptop, which is your device risk. If you move on, Ankit, please. Then yes, you're talking about application risk, and then you talk about a network risk, and the last you have content risk, which is your data risk. Now, if you summarize what we're talking about from a risk per se, which every organization is worried about your endpoint risk, your device risk, your app risk, network risk, and a content risk. You want to move on, Ankit, please? These are some of the examples which I'll not talk about in detail, but Ankit, who's my co-host, will talk about more in details. How do we overcome these challenges? Yeah, Ankit, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Arvind, for giving us the insight on what are the challenges which organizations are facing these days due to the paradigm shifting in terms of the nature of working. While in the usual normal business scenario, everyone used to work on premise, and now due to this pandemic situation, organizations are moving all their workloads and their resources to work from their remote location. So this has also opened few of the areas for an organization to consider whether going forward they want to continue with, let's say, load sharing kind of scenario where, let's say, 60 to 70% of their workforce will still be working from home and only 30 to 40% will be working from their on premises. So as this COVID-19 thing is not going to over very soon, so organization has to prepare themselves, their infrastructure and their security controls in such a way that they can cater to all the requirements of as of now and going forward with the modular technology or the modular scenario which will come into the picture. So as Arvind rightly mentioned and categorized the risk or the type of risk which gets associated when your users are working remotely. So I will be taking you through what are the key pain points of those risks associated with it and what are the solutions associated with it which can help you in terms of deriving your own security framework when you are designing your security operation center or any security strategy going forward. So first and the foremost risk is risk related to the devices. As we all know that our users are working remotely, they could be working from their personal own device, handheld device, mobile devices, or any kind of device. It could be Windows, it could be Linux, it could be your Android, it could be your iOS, right? So whenever there is risk, whenever there is a OS related to that particular device, there are vulnerabilities in those devices as well. So whenever we want to take any security initiative, first thing is that we have to quarantine the risk at the originating level itself. So let's say you have a device which is jailbroken or which has rogue app installed on it, or the mobile phone has some virus or bot on it, and that particular device is trying to connect to your business critical server over a VPN. This could be a potential risk for your organization. And at the same time, from that device, you are accessing your business critical data or storing your business critical data on that particular device. So what if that particular virus or a rogue app can steal the data on your end devices itself also? So you need solutions like UEM, which will enable you to do the containerization of the data, which will segregate your personal space and your professional space, and can also give you the features like mobile threat management, which will help you in terms of keeping your device up to date from virus and bots perspective. So yes, regardless of what kind of device you are connecting, whether you are connecting it from your smartphone or your tablet or your laptop, that particular end device should be secured with antivirus and solutions like UEM, so that you can be protected from the risk which are originating from the device level. Next is a risk associated with ID and the devices and the applications itself also. So when you talk about users working in a remote scenario, definitely they will be getting connected to your network using your VPN connectivity. So do we think that only connecting VPN through the username and password kind of authentication is good enough for our organization to be protected against the kind of sophisticated and targeted attacks happening these days? I don't think so. So we have to attach identity piece into it so that once we validate that particular identity using the authentication mechanism, we can be sure, or from an organization perspective, organization can be rest assured that the user entering in my environment has been validated. I have double checked its authenticity, that yes, it is the legitimate user who is entering in my network. Now, once the user passes the authentication phase, next phase comes is authorization, which is giving access to the resources which that particular user intends to access. So what happens in typical organization is to manage the identity and to manage the access piece of it, they used to manage it on the manual format like Excel. Like there are 1,000 odd IDs, and those 1,000 IDs have to access, let's say, 3 to 4 business application each based on their roles and responsibility. But when you think about a larger scenario where you have users beyond 1,000 or 2,000 or even more than that, this process becomes even more complex to manage all those identity and those access rights manually. So there has to be an automated process which will help you in terms of managing the entire identity and the authorization piece of it. Because if you don't manage the identity and the authorization piece or the access piece, the user will have privileged access in your environment, which will be a potential threat for your organization. Because in case if a person has a malicious intent or his username or password has been stolen or misused, he can probably use the escalated rights and do whatever he wants to do on your business critical server. So managing identity and their access is one of the major points which organizations are looking for. The second piece is managing the entire life cycle of your users. So what happens is, let's say I am one of the user for your organization. Today I joined your organization, and based on my roles and responsibility, I need the access to, let's say, 3 to 4 business applications. Now 6 months down the line, I change my business role, right? And now I need new 3 business application access, while my previous access is something which I don't need due to my new role. Or the another case could be, let's say I leave that particular organization. So once I leave that organization, all the rights on the business application should be revoked and all the IDs should be deleted. But in a typical organization, this particular process is not being followed, because organizations are doing it manually, and it is next to impossible for a huge army of IT resources to even manage all the ID and the access. So we need some automation tool which will enable your organization to automatically provision the IDs, which will automatically disable the IDs if the person or the user doesn't require that particular access. And you can also recertify the access based on your compliance requirement also, because compliance also says that your user access should be revalidated within a stipulated time, let's say 6 months or 1 year, depending upon the compliance requirement. So using this identity access management solution, you can do all such features, and at the same time, you can secure your organization from risk associated or related to the identity of an individual in your organization. Now, next piece to it is a single sign-on, because we as an organization always talk about increasing the user productivity. So let's say I have 5 business application and my user has to put in username and password into each and every application. Definitely, the user productivity will get decreased, right? So we need to have single sign-on kind of solution which will increase the user productivity and the customer experience as well, so that my organization users can be more productive. And multi-factor authentication, as we already mentioned, that only depending upon the user IDs and the passwords for my users to authenticate on a VPN is not sufficient way of authentication. So we have to enable our authentication or empower our authentication mechanism with multi-factor authentication. It can be based on the OTPs, it can be based on the soft token or the hard token. And if you move to the next generation solutions of authentication, it can be your biometrics or your facial detection, which can be leveraged using your handheld devices as well. So if you note, a very important point which I stated over here is my two like statements contradicts in each other. Like at one hand, I say that I will implement single sign-on, which will increase the user experience and the user productivity. While at the other hand, I say that I have to implement my multi-factor authentication, which means that at every layer, at every stage when my users wants to connect, I will stop him and validate his identity. So definitely, when a user has to do a multi-factor authentication, his customer experience will definitely decrease. So this is not a traditional, so this is precisely a traditional way of authenticating a user, which organizations are still following. But nowadays, organizations are looking for a smart solution or an intelligent solution which can differentiate between my legitimate and non-legitimate users. So legitimate users, I want to give them a seamless experience to access all my business critical application or all my public facing application. But at the same time, for non-legitimate users, I want to add an additional layer of authentication, which is my multi-factor authentication. So how it actually works? So there is a risk scoring engine associated with our multi-factor authentication and an IAM solution, which will identify the pattern of your users who is trying to initiate a transaction or who is trying to authenticate on your one of the business critical application. So let's say I am a user, I am accessing from my corporate owned laptop, I am not changing my geolocation, I am logging in from the same web browser, my IP address is also same. So using the internal risk-based scoring algorithm, the solution will say that yes, this is a legitimate user, and I don't see any issue in allowing this transaction, and automatically your user can log in and do whatever he wants to do on your business application. Now, in the other example, let's say I keep on changing my IP address, which a generally attacker will do, or let's say I have changed my laptop. I am not using my corporate laptop. I am using my personal laptop to access the business application. So this solution will say that, hey, Mr. User, you are deviating from your normal pattern, and this doesn't seem legitimate to me. Legitimate to me. So I want you to challenge with an additional authentication mechanism, which is multi-factor authentication. So by this mean, you can keep your enhanced customer experience in place, and at the same time, you can keep the wrong people out from your organization by challenging them with additional layer of security, which is your multi-factor authentication. So this entire suite of IBM identity lifecycle management completes the entire portfolio of risk associated with IDs or with the applications, and at the same time will give you productivity in terms of enhanced customer experience also. So as Arvind also rightly mentioned that there are two types of user in a typical organization. One is your authorized users. So your authorized users will be users like me who are generally doing their normal day in, day out work, like your admin department or your HR department or some other business unit of yours. And there are privileged users in our organization who are administrators of our business critical server or administrators of our applications, right? So when we are developing a security strategy for both type of user, there has to be a visible differentiation in terms of security controls between both the type of users. Definitely, you would also like to secure your authorized users, but at the same time, you would also like to have more security controls for your privileged users because they have the username and passwords which are more critical for your organization because they can access your server entirely and can do whatever they want to do because they have the administrator rights on those servers. So solutions like privilege access management and monitor solution will help you in terms of managing those privilege session also. uh, this will help you in terms of discovering what privilege accounts you have in your environment, and at the same time you can also protect the credentials of those privilege accounts so that they cannot be even misused by your administrators also. And at the same time you can restrict those sessions from executing certain set of commands in case if you want to. So that if let's say if your privileged user is sitting on a remote location working by connecting on a VPN on one of your business critical server, at that particular time I don't want my administrator to even delete any data or to exfiltrate any data or to reboot my business critical server. So you can restrict at that level also, and at the same time you can also record whatever he's doing on your servers. You can record the keystrokes or the commands which he's executing on your business critical server, and you can also do a video recording of the entire session so that in case if something goes wrong in your organization, you will be in a state to see that what your administrator has done on your business critical server so that you can recover from that point in a much effective and in a much reduced time frame as well. So this will help you in terms of managing the privileged users in your organization while they are accessing your business applications or business critical server from their remote locations, from their personal owned devices also. Now, next piece is risk related to the content. So when we always talk about the uh, preventive technologies or the detective technologies in our organizations, we have put in best of the breed, let's say firewall, IPS, IDS, APT, antivirus, everything we have deployed, right? But as we all know that security can never be 100% security, right? And in case if some intruder or some malicious person still enters in your network, got unnotified by any of your preventive or detection technology or even monitoring technology for that per se as well, and lands on your business critical data pool, which could be your database or which could be your file server in your organization where your crown jewels are residing for your organization, right? So we have to have some solutions at the data point itself. So in case even if someone enters in my network and lands on my critical data pool, still he will not be able to do any malicious activity on my critical data. For that, we need to have solutions like database activity monitoring, which will help me in terms of doing very critical stuff from the database perspective. The first piece to it is discovery. Because in an organization, if you see, organization doesn't even know that where their critical information are lying in terms of their databases. So first is discovering the critical data in your databases. Let's say you are an organization who deals with credit card information, and let's say you have 50 to 100 odd database in your organization. Now, with the help of this tool, you can identify that in my database, which tables are containing the PII information of my customer. From that perspective, let's say credit card information. So you can discover all those tables, you can discover all those databases using this tool. And once you do the discovery of your business critical data, you can classify that particular data that yes, this particular data is confidential for my organization. And once the discovery and classification is done, you can do the monitoring of that particular data, that which user is accessing those business critical data for my organization, whether my administrators are also accessing that data or not, whether they are trying to do some modification in that data or not. So once you do the monitoring based on the pattern you see in your organization and based on the compliance requirement of your organization, you can create your own protection policies as well, which will restrict your administrators or which will restrict your malicious user who's coming from outside in your network to do data exfiltration from your database or to do data modification in your database as well. So the entire set of protection from database and the file server perspective, you need to have solutions related to database activity monitoring and definitely encryption also, so that in case if something wrong happens to your organization, in worst case, still the confidentiality of the data is still maintained and the integrity of the data is still maintained, right? And this will also help you in terms of maintaining the compliance requirement from an organization standpoint also, because you talk about any compliance, let it be PCI or let it be HIPAA. So whenever you are maintaining any critical information of your end user or any credit card information, you have to do a periodic audit and you have to generate the reports associated with it. So this tool will also help you in terms of generating the compliance reports as well. So we have talked about a few of the solutions which will help organizations to strategize their security framework. Now we will see in this particular slide that how things will be in action by giving you one of the use case or precisely an example how things will work. So let's say you have deployed your VPN connectivity and then you have an identity management solution in place, uh, and a user is trying to access one of your business critical server by connecting to your VPN. So let's say it got connected on your VPN and it entered in your network. And now after entering into your network, he's trying to do some malicious work. Let's say he's trying to access one of your business critical server and trying to do some data exfiltration, let's say for that person. So as all my security solutions are in place, definitely that particular malicious user will not be able to enter in my network. In case if that particular user tweaks that system and hijacked even the mobile phone of end user and he compromised the username passwords of that particular user as well, and he enters in my network. Whenever he tries to do any malicious work in my internal network, definitely a log will be generated on that particular device, either on application, either on my perimeter security or on my antivirus server. Right? So as I have deployed SIEM solution, which is QRadar in our case, so our QRadar will get integrated with all the infrastructure solutions you have in your environment, whether it is security related or network devices or your servers. So it will feed in all the data into its correlation engine, and based on it, it will create offenses, which will create patterns that what wrong is happening in your environment. And on top of it, we will also run user behavior analysis on that particular logs which we are ingesting, which is powered by machine learning. So with the help of machine learning, we will analyze and we will create the pattern of each and every user in your organization. So let's say I am a user, I enters in your organization and I try to do some malicious work in your organization, right? Either due to my malicious content or some virus or bot in my PC, I am doing this malicious thing in your network. But when we are running a user behavior analysis powered by machine learning on top of it, this will automatically notify your security analyst that, hey, I have observed some changes in the behavior of this particular user, because this user generally doesn't do reconnaissance in your network, right? He generally doesn't do this kind of activity which he is doing today, because we are creating a baseline of the behavior of your users day in, day out. So whenever such kind of thing happens in your organization, this user behavior analysis solution will automatically tell you that your user is deviating from his normal behavior and it could be a risky user for your organization. Now, my detection tool have told me that yes, there is a malicious user have entered in your organization. Now, what I want to do is I want to take the response to that particular security threat arising in my organization. So first and the foremost thing is I want to block that particular user either on my firewall, and I also want to disable that particular user because he is doing data exfiltration in my organization. So with the help of SOAR platform, which is security orchestration and automated response, which is resilient in case of IBM, you can automate the workflows in case if such offenses happens in your organization with the help of playbooks we have in our solution. So let's say you have detected one user, the incident is got opened in a resilient platform. The workflow can be initiated automatically to block that particular traffic on your firewall based on its IP address. And then the source solution, which is resilient, can also ask your identity governance lifecycle solution, which is our IAM solution, to block that particular user or to disable that particular user for an intermediate thing, right? And then this resilient solution can also pull in the data from various security solutions or from applications in your environment to investigate that particular incident further. So let's say this particular incident in case have been occurred due to false positive alarm, you can send a notification using the verify, which is multi-factor authentication solution to users registered mobile phone that please revalidate your identity so that I can enable your user ID in my system. So once he just click on the enable button from his mobile phone, automatically his user ID will be like enabled again and he can do his job seamlessly. But in case if that particular investigation says that yes, this is the malicious user for your organization and this particular machine has been compromised, so using that same SOAR platform, you can automate any such task which you want to take in terms of crafting your response, like doing a vulnerability scan on that particular end machine, or pushing some new patches using your antivirus, or updating the new patch using your SCCM solution, or even quarantining that particular machine from your network for let's say 3 days till the time you don't format that particular machine. So all such tasks can be automated using this SOAR platform. So this completes your entire story from detection to investigation to creating a response in terms of any threat arising from your users who are working remotely and getting connected through VPN or any other mean in your environment, which will help you in terms of establishing security connect from authentication, where validating your user, whether it is legitimate or not, then providing them authorization, which will help you in terms of providing the right set of access to the application for those users, and then audit piece of it, which will help you in terms of doing the compliance monitoring also, and in terms of your compliance audit also. Now moving on to the next slide. So this is the systematic architecture how your security solutions should look like. So you will have various solutions in your environment. Let's say you have identity solution, you have perimeter solution, you have your endpoint solution, and solutions related to your cloud. So everyone feed in the data to your QRadar SIEM solution, and then your QRadar SIEM solution will run its correlation engine to give you the offenses and then empower that particular offenses with the threat intelligence feeds, so that your security analyst can take the informed decision, because now he knows that yes, this is not a non-legitimate traffic entering in my network trying to do some malicious activity. I have to take a response, or I have to craft a response to these security threats. And then using the SOAR platform, which is resilient in our case, the incidents can be escalated in SOAR platform, which will be empowered with the playbooks, which are workflows or automated workflows, which will help you in terms of automating certain tasks in your organization, which will help you in doing two things. One is reducing the response time to any security threat in your environment, because as the things are getting done automatically, definitely the response time will also increase. And at the same time, it will also addresses the requirement of cybersecurity skill shortage in your organization, because we all know that cybersecurity resources are one of the key challenges for an organization, and to retain and maintain those resources are again a challenge. So as the tasks are getting automated, your resources can be leveraged to do more productive work rather than the repetitive work. And one more thing I want to talk about here is that IBM Security being leaders in IBM QRadar quadrant from past consecutive 10 to 11 years. So what we are doing is that we are moving beyond SIEM solution, because the SIEM solution itself by its design has few limitations. Like in the SIM solution, you have to bring in all the data to a central place where you can do the correlation, right? But there are many applications in our environment. There are data lakes in our uh, geographical distributed environment, which makes next to impossible for an organization to bring in all the data into a central location and to do a correlation, either by the design of that particular application or the size of the data. They cannot be brought into a central location and can do the correlation. So with the help of Cloud Pak for Security, which IBM launched, uh, it has a functionality of Data Explorer, which will help you in terms of integrating with all such data sources in your environment, which cannot be integrated with SIM solution. And that particular Data Explorer, you can integrate with your SIM and your other security technologies as well. What it will enable you is, it will enable you to search any kind of incident from a single console across all the log sources you have in your environment. And this will also empower you with the advanced threat intelligence feed, because in SIM solution you will always see that the threat intelligence is reactive in nature. Once the offense gets generated, you will correlate it, and then threat intelligence feeds is like enriched onto it. But with the threat intelligence feed, which we offer in Cloud Pak for Security, is proactive threat intelligence feed, which is categorized under your business vertical and the geolocation you operate in. And it will proactively tell you that based on your industry, these are the top, let's say, 10 threats which are trending in your business vertical. And then it will automatically go and scan all your log sources, whether you have integrated it with your SIM solution or not. It has to be integrated with your Data Explorer solution. So it will scan all your log sources, all your security technologies, and your SIM definitely, and will tell you proactively that based on, let's say, thousands or hundreds of IOC to which this particular threat is associated, I have found, let's say, 2 or 3 IOCs in your environment. So you could be prone to attack to such kind of threats also. So you will get the entire visibility in terms of proactive threat intelligence, which will help you in terms of doing threat hunting. And also it will bridge the gap of a typical security operations center where you have hidden information lying on your log sources which are not integrated with your SIM solution. And all these things are happening from the single console. Your security analyst or your security explorers doesn't have to go on each and every application. They doesn't have to know the format of each and every application to run the queries itself. So it reduces the detection time, the investigation time, and the response time, which is a key to success to any security operation center. Now, this is the vision what we as an IBM security carry, that whether you want to protect your data in the form of database activity monitoring, or if you want to have an identity based solution, or if you want to have a threat intelligence, or if you want to have detection tools like QRadar or orchestration tools like Resilient in place. So regardless of where your data or where your applications are residing, the solution should be integratable. So whatever platform which we have talked about, so whether you have data on premises, whether you have data on your private cloud, or whether you have data on public clouds like AWS or Azure, using the IBM security solution, you can integrate with all the data points you have in your environment and can have the 360-degree visibility of the security threats in your organization, from detection to investigation, and again to creating the faster response for any kind of threat you see in your environment, whether it is related to the current situation, which is pandemic in nature, COVID-19, or usual business which you used to have previously this pandemic, or going forward also, where you will have a mix of, let's say, 50 to 60% users still working from home, or 50 to 60% users working from your on-premise. So wherever your users are, wherever your data are, using the IBM security platform, you can secure your users, you can secure your data, which is a bread and butter for your organization. So this is all what I have from deliverable perspective, and we are on time also. So we can take the Q&A. So if we have questions in chat, probably